Our first storyteller is Ada Cheng. Ada is an educator turned storyteller, a solo performer and community builder. Ada has used storytelling to illustrate inequities, raise critical awareness, and build intimate communities. She has created a lot of storytelling platforms for community members to tell difficult and vulnerable stories. Welcome, Ada. You need help with the mic?
I think this should be okay. I'm so glad to be the first to go so I can drink. This is my lucky glasses, so I hope we raise a lot of money. Yes. I'm at an age where I need to wear glasses just about any angle, so bear with me. Fall 1991, Eugene, Oregon. I was an international student from Taiwan, pursuing my master's degree at the University of Oregon. This was my first time in the United States. I was struggling. I was able to speak some English, but my reading and writing wasn't strong. I didn't have any friends. I was so determined to make it in this country that I cut myself off from the Taiwanese community so I could fully immerse myself in English. I was alone. I was lonely. I did enjoy one of the classes I was taking, international communication. I liked it because of the professor, Dr. Rob Crawford, who introduced me to the book that changed my life, Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Freire was a Brazilian educator who believed that education should be a process of mutuality and collaboration, where the participants and the teacher both learned from one another. For him, education should be the process for the liberation of the oppressed. Yet this book has continued to impress upon me beyond 1991. It was partially because of Dr. Crawford and his own story. He was a Native American, a strong advocate for the Native American sovereignty, a conscientious resistor during the Vietnam War. He was thrown into prison because he objected to the draft and refused to participate in any harm, personal as well as structural. He later visited Vietnam and sought to understand this country devastated by wars. And that trip started his lifelong mission for world peace and justice. He didn't just teach, he modeled for us. We sat in a circle where he facilitated our weekly discussion. There were no lectures, only dialogues through which we affirmed and challenged one another. He stressed the importance of respectful dialogues, through which we honored one another's humanity, even if we disagreed. He showed us this very important principle. What you want to see, you need to be. I still remember the pushback from white students against his narration of the American history from the Native perspective. I didn't quite understand it then, since I, as a newcomer, was still learning about the racial tension stemming from the historical colonization of the native land that many social justice activists today don't even talk about, even as they challenge the settler colonialism out there. There was another reason why this book made an impression upon me. I grew up in Taiwan under an authoritarian regime, the so-called White Terror era that extended from 1949 to 1991. I grew up in a political climate where political dissidents and their families could be and were disappeared, arrested, imprisoned, and murdered, not just because of their actions, but also because of their thoughts. Imagine the thoughts only could be seen as treason. I grew up knowing how not to speak about my ideas out loud and to read certain banned books in public because people could report you. I was followed at some point in college for my participation as a student leader for a student club on the study of China. It was also in the student club that I learned that your own friends could be spies for the government, reporting all of our private conversations to the top. I once witnessed how military personnel stormed into my workplace, confiscating materials deemed too dangerous for the government, taking away one of my co-workers. I also grew up in an educational system where we sat passively in the classroom listening to lectures and where the students were conditioned to regurgitate the information fed to them. I came of age in an educational system that molded students into compliant workers and docile citizens, aversive to rebellion. Imagine how revolutionary it was to read Pedagogy of the Oppressed, where the process of learning and teaching was more participatory rather than hierarchical. The teachings from this book have stayed with me for decades. They have been ingrained in me as I pursued my PhD. They have resided within me as I teach at universities. They have stayed within me after I left my tenure position to pursue storytelling and performance. They have always been part of me as I engage in public education using storytelling and performance. Freire's message of empowerment and liberation has always inspired me to imagine possibilities through the following question: how do I demonstrate servant leadership through my teaching, storytelling, and community work? As I look back, I'm amazed how the three of us have been connected. The Brazilian educator, the Native American professor who modeled his practice, and a young woman, me, that's 30 years ago, from Taiwan, trying to create a home for herself on this land by leaving everything behind. This land, where I have pursued my dreams after I left my homeland more than 30 years ago. Dreams that might not have come true should I have stayed back home. This land of possibilities if you dare to dream, possibilities for you to realize your dream if circumstances permit. Freire once said, what the educator does through teaching is to make it possible for the students to become themselves. I'm going to give it a poetic twist. I learn, therefore I am. I teach, therefore I become. I dream, therefore I dare. I dare to simply be. And this is what I would call dreaming the American dream. Until. Thank you.